Erica Beckelheimer, Francesca Brosh, and myself, John E. Napier Jr. Table of contents. We have the introduction, public opinion, legal questions, government acquired data, then, and you have government acquired data now, political arguments, rhetoric, justification, public responses, media evaluation, conclusions, or references. The introduction, Chicago violence increased up to 57%. From the Windy City to the Wounded City, national attention leads to political focus. Section 1 will be about public opinion, legal questions, and government acquired data. Public opinion is that of outrage at the extremely violent conditions in Chicago, enough to inspire Spike Lee's Chirac adaptation of La Sistrata. Communities band together to strive for changes. Per 100,000 people in Chicago, there were 15 homicides, 501 robberies, 485 aggravated assaults, and overall, there's over 4,200 crimes that occur each year in Chicago a year. But this has brought communities together rather than pulling them apart. And also, Chicago has prepared for the violence and now decreasing, and their crimes are now decreasing with sports and after-school programs. So the legal question: who's to blame? We got poorly trained cops, or out of control gangs, failing education system, exploitative media. It could be all of the above. Here's your government acquired data then, where a difference 4 years makes. In 2013, Chicago was on track to becoming one of the safest large urban areas in the U.S. The government acquired data now is that today Chicago has more homicides than New York and LA combined. Alright, that concluded our section 1. Now for section 2 for political arguments, rhetoric, and justifications. Granted, we appreciate that the president included some statistics with his tweet because normally he does not do that, but it's still an unclear message. What exactly does he mean by the feds? According to Clarence Page, reporter, the police in Chicago already work with the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration, and if Trump really wanted to help, he would buy more equipment, hire personnel, and beef up the community police and training program. Back in August before the election, Trump said the problem could get better if people would just be a little tougher. This is obviously crazy because if that were true, it would have been accomplished a long time ago. According to the Chicago Mag, politics in Chicago is corrupt. Over the past 40 years, 1,500 people have been convicted of corruption that were from Chicago. When you have so much bad influence coming from the rich and powerful, it is no wonder Chicago has a high crime rates. If the internal government is struck with crime, how can the people on the outside escape it? President Trump's rhetoric on the topic of crime in Chicago is incorrect, according to Andrea Gillespie, a political science professor at Emory University. She thinks his statements are rooted in stereotypes and only a surface level of understanding. In September 2016, when Trump visited Chicago, he did not discuss crime at the public events. Instead, he held a private fundraiser with a going rate of $250,000. Cynthia Bush, 59-year-old who lives in Chicago, said although President Trump may seem like he knows what he's talking about, those within the city feel like his words will not turn into actions. Justifications. Am I taking this to mean why there is so much crime in Chicago? Justification means the act of showing something is reasonable, good, and I think we all will agree that any crime is not good crime. Please let me know if I went in the wrong direction with this. In August 2016, Chicago had the biggest spike in crime that they had seen in over 20 years. There's no one clear-cut reason as to why it occurred, but there are some speculations to the spike in crime and the crime overall. Lene O'Neill argues that over years and generations, crime has been a part of Chicago's history, and until political figures fully address and commit to changing things, nothing will change. Andre Hamlin says that it is simply due to boredom. Dr. Carl Bell thinks it has something to do with fetal alcohol exposure when mothers drink during the first few months of pregnancy because they are unaware they are pregnant. It impacts the baby for the rest of their lives. There are hundreds of other reasons that could explain why the crime rate in Chicago seems to be so much higher than in other places. More than likely, it is a combination of a lot of different things. O'Neill is a senior writer for ESPN who grew up in Chicago. Hamlin is a head of security for Derrick Rose of the New York Knicks and a former gang member who grew up in Chicago. Dr. Bell is a psychiatrist who has been practicing in Chicago for over 45 years. Please let me know if I'm off point for any of these subtopics. Hope everyone is having a good week. Alright, that also concluded our section 2. Now section 3 will be our public responses and media evaluation. When you see this image of DeMarco Kennedy, what is your first assumption? Do you think he is a shooter or a victim? Do you think he's a gang member or a hard-working family man gunned down while paying bills at his kitchen table? My real-life application, an article by Gorner describing the senseless slaying of husband and father DeMarco Kennedy, I could personally relate to this real-life application. Prior to moving in our current apartment, my family and I lived on the far south side of Millersville. I don't know what it is about the south side always being rough, but apparently that holds true to both Millersville and Chi-Town. Just 1 block away from my old rental house, a good friend of mine experienced a drive-by shooting not long after we moved into the neighborhood. Immediately I thought about my family and my young sons. I responded in a very similar way as to the public responses. As the public responded in Chicago, I secured my carrying permit for my weapon. I know guns may not be the answer to gun violence, but with random shootings happening just 1 block away on the same street where my family sleeps, that was my immediate response, so I don't blame the people of Chicago responding in a similar way. When you feel the fear for not just your life, but the life of your loved ones, the overwhelming urge to protect your family is undeniable. Some people say violence isn't really getting worse, it's just the media is covering it more prominently. It may be correct that the violence isn't getting worse, but that has always been equally bad, and people have been ignoring it, turning a blind eye because it wasn't affecting them. Perhaps these two sides of seemingly different camps are really saying the same thing. Change won't happen until the media can present information in such a way that makes it hurt. Strong leaders know that people won't change until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. In conclusion, watch a video like those of Philander Castile's daughter praying for her father to live hurts. Staying the same and allowing hundreds, if not thousands, of children to pray those prayers each year hurts too much to stay the same. So yes, the media coverage of Chicago crime might make it seem like they are just increasing coverage of an existing issue, but until the media coverage makes everyone uncomfortable enough that we finally insist on making changes, everything will remain the same.